Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with BeyondTrek podcast.
This is BeyondTrek podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm Big J.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at BeyondTrek Podcast and on Twitter at BeyondTrek Pod.
Red alert.
Well, technical issues aside with Zoom, thank you very much for the update that jacked up some of our settings. Let's talk about Lower Decks.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to BeyondTrek podcast. We're so happy you're here again for another episode review. I'm Watney.
I'm Big J.
And I'm Dag.
Hi. We're so happy
we've had
you're
like
here.
2 good intros in a row.
I know
We're getting smooth
fucked
now.
It up.
We didn't fuck up the intro.
Yeah. We're all smiles here this morning, I think. Big J has us recording at 7 a.m. So no, I'm kidding.
Hey, it's 7 where I am.
Okay. That's
Sorry.
true.
You know how it is. Weekend with the kids and stuff. And all.
Guys, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's dive in, huh?
Yeah, let's dive in to episode 3 of season 1 of Lower Decks, Temporal Edict. Now, Dag, what do you got to tell the audience before we start?
If you haven't seen it yet, stop now and come back. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. And thanks for joining us again.
And please come back. Yes.
This is your spoiler alert. So we're gonna go full on out.
I kind of want to just get right into it because there's a lot that happened in this episode, and a lot. I don't honestly have almost anything bad to say.
Oh.
I know.
Okay,
I know.
that's if Watney's impressed, then that's a good feat right there.
Yeah. So in the first scene here, we open up with Boimler playing this like crystal looking violin, which was really funny. It's like space violin once again, like space shovels and space hose.
This music interlude here was spectacular. It's another great thing that you don't expect to see in Star Trek, but it totally works. I love the guitar playing, the drum playing, and please tell me you've got a deck with the Klingon. What is the meaning of this bass?
Are you mocking me? And the captain's like, no, we don't even hear it on our end. It must be you that's the problem. It's like such a Captain Freeman thing, I think.
The whole ship is rumbling.
Engineer, today you die.
It's so funny because like I'm sure it was coming through like on the Ceratos's end towards the Klingon because you can't hear in space. Although it's really funny that they like zoomed out into like the dead space between the bird of prey and and the Ceratos, and they were like do 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 do, like you could hear it in space, which you can't. But I thought that was really fundy. I
wonder if Beckett Mariner got her bass playing lessons from Nikki Sixx.
She just like comes in. I think this was like a talent show or something, which is really funny that like a Lower Decks talent show is going on when there's like a Klingon conversation happening on the bridge. It's like the upper, it's like the senior officers are like, whatever, they can do whatever. We're going to conduct all the business. And they're like, yes. It's great.
I just got to point out how much I love Tendy's focus here. She's just like,
look at her face.
Oh, yeah. She means business.
Yeah. The electric drums, that she's been practicing those.
Oh, yeah.
In her spare time, like the little cinnamon roll.
And then the captain mutes the Klingon and is like, get down there and stop that.
Yeah. And the security officer, what's his name? Shax?
Yeah.
He comes down. He's like, Captain said you're being too loud. And Boimler's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like he doesn't he
doesn't care about his violin.
He doesn't care if he was even loud. He cares that the captain thinks he did something bad. So that's why he apologizes. That's funny.
Well, he was in the wrong place at the right time because Mariner and Dindy stopped playing And then Boimler started again just as Shaq shows up, and he just grabs him and brings her out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in this case, Mariner was like, I'm gonna annoy my mom.
Yeah. I'm gonna play loud music in my room.
Yeah. It's basically the equivalent of that, while my mom's trying to conduct this negotiation with a fucking Klingon who has a temper, clearly. I'm gonna go ahead and just annoy the shit out of her. And we see that kind of in the preview for episode 4 at the end. We see her like yeah. So after this scene, we get the beautiful title sequence, and yeah, oh my gosh, the Cerritos in this episode was the shining star. Like we saw so many amazing shots of it, and I just love how the animation looks. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous.
It is really nice to see the CG effects all come together and yet relate so strongly to the way they used to do the animatics for, say, the Enterprise in TNG, because those are all layered effect shots that get composited into one beauty shot of the ship. And now we don't have to layer it anymore. It's just what it is, and it's still gorgeous.
Yeah, the glow of the deflector dish and the nacelles. I just drool. Honestly, It's just like eye candy almost. And I would love to know what Tato thinks of the Cerritos, because he's our tech with Tato guy. And I would love to know what he thinks about it, because we hear, I don't think any of the co-hosts are like huge Starship nerds, like
not like he is.
Not like he is, but there are people out there who are extremely enthusiastic about the ship design. So I'd love to know their thoughts. It's kind of growing on me. I know he said it was ugly at the beginning, but it's kind of growing on me.
A little bit. It's grown a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the Galaxy class did that over TNG for me, because at first I was like, that is ugly. It was like a toilet lid. Like, seriously. But yeah, so we get to see the beautiful Cerritos, and yeah, it definitely does not have 26 decks, like Tendi mentions later in the episode.
Right. Do we even have 26 decks?
Do we even have that many?
Well, there's going to be plenty of beauty shots going on, so I'm going to get on down to that. There was that great log that Ransom was giving. We are going to do some cool diplomatic stuff on Cardassia Prime, and then the ship breaks in space, and we get this call from the Admiral, who's like, we're moving the stuff to Vulcan. You guys can go deliver these gifts to that other planet.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk with the Cardassians. They're kind of creeping everybody out, which I think was hilarious, because we know how creepy the Cardassians are.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just like, just having it openly admitted by an admiral. Of course, admirals are going to deliver the bad news.
Yes,
they always
that's what they do.
I wonder what's behind her. You can kind of see like this little lantern thing.
Yeah, she's got a lot of naval stuff there, and that's one of the things that is also kind of cool is the animators have taken the time to sort of personalize the quarters for the ranking officers so that you can see the kinds of things they appreciate. In a previous episode, if you look at Captain Freeman's office, she's got a baseball in her cubby, like homage to Cisco.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff in there.
I need to like go back and rewatch, because honestly, this show is getting really good, and it's like really growing on me. So I think I want to go back and do a 1, 2, 3 rewatch. But yep, Jack's like, but we'll be the funniest, or what does he say? He's like trying to console the captain. She's not having it.
She says the ship is a joke, and he says, well, we're the funniest joke in Starfleet then.
Yes.
Like trying to still be the
help.
best. Trying to still be the best at something, even if we are a joke, we're the funniest joke. I'm like, that may not be the best.
He's very Starfleet, and I think the crew of the Cerritos like all has their reasons for kind of being on this ship, and I think we'll discover Ransom's reasons as we continue on through this season. But I think this episode, especially these early scenes, kind of show Captain Freeman feeling maybe like rejected from Starfleet, and I think that even further supports my theory that we talked about in our second episode review, which is that her daughter is an augment. She got involved in genetic upgrades for her kid, and she was caught, and so she's pissed that she's on the Cerritos, and because we know that she's a good captain, like she's cut out for the job, she has the right attitude, but and this also could have to do with that little light that flew inside her too. So lots of things we haven't even picked that up yet. So anyway,
secret possession by a grumpy captain.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
anyway.
No, it'd be very interesting to see her growth. And this is a pretty good Ransom episode. He leaves some questions to be answered by the episode's end.
Yeah, I like him more and more. I think he's very interesting. So
that there.
Yeah, we jump over to the brig where they're the lower decks group that we love, the friend group is checking out the brig force field integrity, and Mariner makes a mistake here.
Fires phaser right
which is not like her to do that. So yeah, they're testing the integrity from within and outside the brig, and then once they're done, Mariner's like, oh, let's have a margarita. But we know it's like synthahol. And this is another thing about her drinking a lot and not being affected. So
one of the things about this scene is that she could just be joshing Boimler. Like, we don't get to see what the settings on the phaser are. And it just seems it could just be something that's like prankish. So like, oh yeah, I was totally set to stun when it really was.
Yeah, it could be, but I think she says it like subdued enough to make the audience believe that it was actually a genuine mistake.
Right, and I like that it can sort of go in the ways. I like it better that it might have been set to kill. It's just terrible.
Well, she did change the setting on it. You heard her hit the button, so I don't know. Yeah, she may have not had it on stun.
Yeah,
it's true.
So after the force field test is done, we learn the plot device that will be kind of not the plot device, but just the concept that kind of is the crux of the episode.
The trope. Which is
buffer time. Mm-hmm. And so Tendy's like, isn't that lying? Like, yeah.
This was perfect.
I think that this kind of like plays into something everyone can understand, because this is something that the majority of people who work like regular jobs do, is you got to buff the time that you think is something's going to work on. And honestly, I think that the moral of the episode plays into Mariner's attitude, which is do what you have to do to get the job done, but don't worry about the time crunch and don't follow the time protocol so much. And so I think that the Cerritos starts to like bend a little bit more towards Mariner's ideology there, but we get to see Dr. T'Ana be like happy for once.
5 hours. That's great.
5 hours. That's great.
And Jay, I'm sure, during this whole pandemic time, working from home, there are times where we have tasks and the tasks are expected to take a certain amount of time. And we know that if we can complete that task as expected within a certain amount of time, and whatever's left can just kind of feel like reclaimed time. You can go get up, get a glass of, something to drink and something like that. A glass of water, because of working hours, you don't want to have a synthaholic margarita.
Right.
Working.
Right.
But
definitely not.
I totally related to this, because it was like, man, I got my task done. I've reclaimed some time. I can, the stress level can come down a little bit.
Yeah,
from doing that. And I love Boimler here, because it's really uncharacteristic for him.
It is.
He just downs this margarita, just poof, done.
But that's the lower decks way.
Well, and Dag, to point a little more to what you were saying, you're right, because I really enjoyed how this episode focused on that trope of that buffer time, and then the whole. You didn't tell the captain how long it would really take, did you? Which was that line from Scotty in TNG's episode Relics. Geordi told Captain Picard exactly how long something would take, and Scotty was like, what the hell are you doing? You don't do that. And you're right, because I have certainly had those occasions with the kind of work I do in the technical field in IT. I have an idea as to how long a particular thing should take. Sure. But here's the problem is if you pad that and say, okay, well, this is supposed to maybe take 15, 20 minutes to accomplish. But you say an hour, what happens is if you get it done sooner, great. If something happens that you're not expecting, you've got to have that buffer time, because otherwise, yes, there's nothing to gain by trying to make that estimate so tight that, you know, you're putting the stress on yourself. Because if it gets done sooner, great. That always looks a lot better than if you tell a customer, okay, I'm going to switch out this router and it's going to take me 15 minutes. Right. Sure, best case scenario, take 15 minutes. But I've had those occasions where you say that, you put it in, and something does not go right. For whatever reason, you're not, you know, it doesn't go right. And so here it is, you're a half hour in, you told them it would take 15 minutes. Now you're screwed. So buffer time. Put buffer that time.
It's kind of like, it's very interesting because like in TNG, so many times we see Geordi talking to Picard, and Picard's like, this is a problem right now and you need to fix it right now. We're all going to die. And Geordi's like, okay, I'll make it work. And he does make it work because he's Geordi on the Enterprise, but this is not the Enterprise. These are Starfleet officers. This is lower decks. So, you know, they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be Geordi. We know Rutherford is not Geordi, even though he tries to, he'll get there someday. But it's just like, it's about the characters who make the ship run. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of this it's kind of a great message, because once you reclaim that time, I'm a fan in my work day of saying, okay, here's this task. I'm going to focus hardcore for 15-30 minutes, get this done. And then I'm going to like reassess and let my mind like decide what I'm going to do next, and maybe go for a walk and get a glass of water, maybe get a snack or something. And I think that breaking up your day in that way, for just me, is more productive than saying like, I'm going to work nonstop from like 8 to 5 p.m. With like a 1 hour break. My brain doesn't work well that way, and I work really good in chunks. So this was kind of refreshing to see like, hey, you know, at the end of the day, get it done how you need to, focus on your mental health, make sure you're not caught up in the rat race, and have a margarita.
Yeah. And we got to keep in mind that, like, with the exception of Mariner, these three guys, they're fresh out of college. And I remember being fresh out of college, having focused in my major, that like, that was the thing that was at the forefront of my mind. Yeah. And you've got Tendi, who's a medical officer. I don't know why a medical, I thought she was science, but she's a medical officer. Mm-hmm. And she's got the bedside manner, but she's got the bedside manner that is undeterred by having trauma and death going through it. Like we can clearly see T'Ana's been through some hell. Like her whiskers are uneven, her ears snipped. I wonder if that means she's been spayed. Like, is that a thing? Do that?
I don't know, but she did hiss this episode, so which we'll get more into. But yeah,
patients get spayed. That's
the whole point.
It's just called getting your tubes tied at that point.
Not in their culture. You got spayed. They're cats.
They're humanoids.
The point that I'm trying to make is that we as adults with some experience under our belt need to give some leeway to our three lower decks. You know, not Mariner. Mariner's been around a little bit, but the other three, they're fresh out. They're focused on the thing that they did in the academy, and they haven't had to suffer the losses and the failures and the accidents that the other people on the crew have. You know, in this episode, we see a whole bunch of scars that Mariner has because she's been places. And so their optimism hasn't been balanced by, you know, these threats yet, which is something that I think that, you know, keeping in mind helps make sense of their character. They're kids. Yeah,
they are. Slugging margaritas. So yeah, Freeman gets pissed. She goes around not the office. What am I saying? She goes around her starship, and she's like, what is buffer time? She's pissed off. And then she corners Boimler in their turbo lift. He's like, I have to be honest to my captain. So then, you know, we get the edict of the episode.
Yep.
Of you need to be on time. You're going to be timed throughout your day, and you need to check in every minute, which is just so ridiculous. I had a job that used to do this, where you had to clock every minute that you worked. If it was like over 5 minutes, you had for a client, you had to bill that. And I was like, I'm going to take more time in my day tracking my time than I am actually working.
Yes. You take more time tracking your time, more time putting in those notes or whatever. So, absolutely.
Yeah. And I take meticulous notes about what I do work on, but sometimes it's like, oh, I need to get this done. And then you like, it took 30 seconds to do that. So anyway, we get the edict of the episode.
I feel like Mariner knows it was Boimler, but she blames Delta Shift anyway.
I know. Delta Shift. They think they're better than us because they are better than us.
And then he makes the speech about, we're Starfleet, we can do this. And then a week later, no.
Yeah.
And everybody's screaming.
I think a podcast named Delta Shift would be great. Anyone listening, if you want to start your own podcast, that's a great name.
I thought
no, Watney, we don't need any more competition. Don't give them ideas.
Whatever, the more the merrier. Yeah, but we get these beautiful shots of the Cerritos again, kind of spiraling, because it's like the Cerritos is like, what are you doing to me? It's personified a little bit here.
And you can hear all the screaming.
Yes. Oh yes. It's like, wow, they're really going in. I didn't look in too much detail at this. I'd like to rewatch it and see precisely what everyone's working on. We get to see an Andorian. People are just running around freaking out. And then Mariner comes by and she's like, I gotta go on an away mission with Ransom. It's gonna be lame. It's like, it's actually gonna be really cool. So
yeah, this is a workplace where you are being micromanaged.
Yes.
This is a workplace where you are constantly looking over your shoulder, trying to make sure that no one is going to come after you for being 2 seconds late. And I think I related so much to this, even though it is sort of exaggerated and satirized, but I related so much to this as somebody who came from a work environment in the past that was heavily micromanaged. You are more worried that your boss is going to come talk to you than you are about getting the task done. And that is what leads to all kinds of this kind of failure on the ship is you're so anxious and so scared and so worried that the jobs that you could get done, even in the same amount of time, are taking longer because that anxiety is crippling, rationality.
Yes. Yeah. You've got that heightened stress level.
Yeah, I would honestly just transfer. if this was my ship, I'd be like, see ya. Because this is not how I live my life. It's not how I want to live my life. I like to take my time and live in the moment. And I've had anxiety in the past, and no, sir. No. Bye. I'll see you later.
I think one cool moment in this sequence is Beckett is running through saying she's late for Ransom's away mission, which we're pointing out, maybe things that are a little bit unlike Beckett, but for her to be so, I just expect her to be like, this time stuff is dumb and just saunter through the halls like she always did. But here she's like, she's booking it. She's booking it. So I think that might demonstrate a little bit of Boimler and Beckett are rubbing off on each other. Boimler's learning how to take it a little bit easier, and Beckett is learning that sometimes you have to play as a team, and that means following the rules.
Yeah, right. Great insight. I totally agree. I think that they're all hanging out now more, and he's like, I'll have a margarita, whatever. It's just the lower decks way, and she's like, I gotta be on schedule. Although she's still gonna call an away mission lame. So
and it's also been a week since this happened, so maybe she got a stern talking to off screen, get your stuff together or get packing.
We can't demote you anymore, Beckett.
Right. We can't send you back to the academy. They won't take you.
Yeah. So we see everyone rushing around, and Boimler's having the most fun of his life. Look, his pad's green.
Yeah.
I love that we get to see pads more. These are great. They're beautiful. I want to get a prop so bad.
Let's see. Excuse me. One of the things that this scene reminded me of was at the beginning of the last episode, Envoys. Boimler is talking about how he got the coolest, diplomatic duty to go escort the Klingon ambassador. And Beckett says something along the lines of, what's your idea of real fun, work? And here he is having the time of his life, working, getting everything done marvelously. He's one of the few you see who's not exhausted.
Yeah.
And he's this is his zone. Yeah, exactly.
This is his wheelhouse. I completely Well, Mariner looks great in that screenshot. Look at that. Her hair is like, boo.
Yep. She woke up like
all
that.
business.
I woke up like this.
Yeah. So we see Ransom helping in his own way, which is just commanding. And he's like, an away mission is only routine until it isn't. Like, don't we all know that this won't be a routine away mission. They kind of go back and forth. Mariner comes up and she's like, you were telling us that weird story about your sister's friend or something. I don't know. And then they basically banter a little bit, and he's like, roll down those sleeves. This isn't a barn.
And that's where her annoyance comes from. It's like, what?
Yeah. She's like, what are you? I'm working.
Yeah.
Dude, like, I'm a working ensign. I get shit done. So they fly down. I thought it was so funny. He's like, there's some disturbance in the atmosphere. She's like, they're called clouds.
Yes.
They're gonna beam down. What'd you say? Nothing. So they're on this away mission, and this is a very funny species to me because they're all about crystals.
Yeah.
And they hate wood. Like, it's just a weird thing. They're on this mission to basically like help them set up something, I forget, and they need this specific crystal in order to
they're supposed to
make a welcome.
Yeah, it's like the friendship crystal. They the first contact team gave it to them, and this is the perfect example of the show and their mission. So the first contact already happened, and then they moved on, and then the second contact team comes in for all the fine details, the talking, the chatting, negotiating, all of that. And I like that we got to see the loading of the shuttle, the prep work of the actual away mission.
Yes.
Just those little details. And because everyone's so stressed, so freaked out, you get the wrong luggage packed, and it turns into this diplomatic nightmare. Then
he gets stabbed.
This is one of those moments where if there are kids watching this who are like, he brought wood, ha ha ha, funny, and the innuendo that is throwing up for the adults is he's got wood, and the adults are laughing because of the innuendo. 10 years later, kids are going to rewatch this and go,
Yep.
Yeah. It's also a fertility totem. So
exactly.
It's as if and he's like, you wood huggers, crystals. They all have crystal earrings. It's hilarious. Ransom's like, I got this under control. Oh shit. Then his crewmate gets stabbed. The poor Bolian. Mariner comes over. She's like, we live on a spaceship. Nobody's dying from a spear wound.
Yeah.
And Ransom's like, I'm gonna.
Good shot.
Wow, that was dag. Oh my god.
That screenshot there makes it hurts. Like I kind of recoiled in pain. Watney doesn't have the appropriate equipment, and she's still cringing.
So yeah,
it's funny that he complains about her sleeves being rolled up, and then her arm, she just tears off like a piece of her uniform.
To
like
use it as she's like tourniquet.
Yeah, and he gets hit, and she's like, "All right, that was awesome." I just think it's so funny. She gets circled by spears. She's like, "What is this? The 2260s, my Kirk?" Yeah. Like, I just love her. I love her.
She, in my head, thinking about that, she's like me if I somehow ended up transported in Starfleet. Be like making all the references.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow, this is like that time on the Enterprise where Dr. Crusher got trapped in a warp bubble. Wait, you know about those things? Yeah, the way to cure it is just go to Tal Alpha C. We'll be fine.
No, we've established that in order to role play within the Trek universe, you have to know these references because your DM is going to make these references. Yes. And in order to say that you're a great officer in character, you have to know everything about the shows because you're just like a fanboy. So, okay. Next scene, we're back on the Ceratops, and we get a cool alien reference here with Rutherford spilling acid through the decks.
Which comes into play later.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. So the captain starts to take over the bridge. The mistakes are being made because even her bridge crew can't handle the strictness. And then I think it's Galrakians.
Yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. they attack and she's like, huh, seriously? Shields up. It was just like the great, I just loved her attitude there. So she starts to like take everything over as.
And Shax is like, I can't put the shields up.
She's like, I got this. So the Galrakians board, they attack with like boarding pods. They push into the ship with spears, which is hilarious because like Rutherford's like, swords and spears, how'd they come on board? I just thought it was really funny.
And the captain is making this speech during this whole scene being like, you must repel the invaders, but don't think that gives you an excuse to not live up to your duties on time.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was unbelievable. Yeah. Keep doing what you're supposed to be doing and excuse me, and multitask. They do it all the time on the Enterprise is what she said.
Well, think about it this way. Customer service, but also make sure all your stocks get inventoried and stocked. That's
yeah.
Customer service.
That's my background. I remember it.
So yeah, we go back down to Galrac 5, and Mariner is basically trying to get into the head of this guard, and she's like, "Is this really what you want to do with your life?" He's like, "Actually, yeah." She's like, "Oh, well, then that makes you lame."
He can't win.
Yeah, he just can't win, and she's just like getting in his head, and Jack is like, "We may come from different wood." He's scratching it with a crystal. Be quiet. I'm writing this speech. It's going to get us out of here. It's just like the funniest thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's a quote from something that I didn't look up, but
in a way, he's kind of like Picard. He tries to talk his way out of everything. He tries to be diplomatic when it comes to stuff like this. And I think this is kind of an homage to Picard a little bit. The leader of Galrac 5 comes into the scene as Mariner and Jack are basically bantering and arguing with each other, and so he announces to them that they're going to have to save their away team's lives via trial by combat, and they're going to have to fight Vindor, which usually has a cooler entrance, but he was just too excited this time, so here he is. So they're going to be fighting for the away team's life, and it's a very funny scene because he's like, this is the what kind of geo did he say it was called?
The judicial geo or something. The constitutional
adjudication geo.
Yes.
Or something. Yes.
It's basically legally lets us smash our bad guys.
Adjudication geode.
Crystal.
It's a fucking great name. Crystal. Crystals. The whole time they're just saying crystals.
And then they chuck this sword out. It's like one of you gets to decide who fights Vendor, and
you have one day to decide. And they're like, me.
Yeah, they start fighting over it.
Yeah. Then they start fighting over it, and then we I think we actually go back to the Cerritos for a quick second, and Boimler starts. Yeah, he starts. They're like, well, we have you surrounded. He's like, yeah, but I have a phaser. And they just phase them, which is like, thank you, Trek. Thank you for being like, no, it's really stupid that if these high-tech officers always get overtaken by people with spears.
Yeah. I like how he walks up to this graffiti and I think he takes a screenshot of it on his pad and is like, translates it. And is like, oh, well, that's not very nice.
Yeah, he uses Google Translate on it.
Because he translates it, it just said something like mean.
I forgot what
he goes to the bridge and Shax punches him out.
He's like, oh, it's just that Huffy ensign. He's like, I'm not Huffy. And then they're banging on the door. They're like, where are you hiding your crystals? He's like, we don't have crystals. We have dilithium crystals, but you're not getting those.
Yeah. And he comes to the realization that even the people on the bridge are being subject to all the time stuff.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So we get these rabid crystal lovers.
Yep.
Yeah. So then we get into kind of the meat of like not maybe the meat of the plot, but we get into the headbutting of a commander who followed protocol and a command officer, an ensign who didn't, but are still two very capable people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they fight over the sword, and Mariner's like, rank means nothing in this situation. And Ransom's like, rank means everything always. He's just completely counteracting what she's saying. And she's like, I do get off on breaking protocol, and protocol is for people who need to be told what to do, which I don't. By the way, here are all my cool scars.
Yep.
And so I listed out her scars here. So she has a scar from a tentacle guy stabbing her with a barnacle blade. She has a scar from Magnus 3, Nanibia Prime, and Scottsdale.
She said that was a mess.
Like Arizona, Scottsdale?
Yes, Scottsdale, Arizona.
She's like, that was a mess. I'm like, what happened in Arizona?
Fun fact. There's an episode of The Next Generation where Guinan pulls out a rifle from behind the bar and shoots it into the roof of 10 Forward to stop a bar fight.
Mm-hmm.
That gun was from Magus 3.
Oh.
There's nothing else about Magus 3 in the whole of canon except for that gun, and now that Mariner has a scar.
Oh my god, they're
from there.
really seriously
Wow.
kind of references.
Additionally, Nanibia Prime isn't a place, but Ninipia Prime is a place.
With a P?
Ninipia as opposed to Nanibia. And I looked up Ninipia, and it is the one that Mariner says she has, Nanibia, is on a list of like fourth-rate gaming World of the Federation with no other detail, but it references the Voyager episode Vis-a-Vis, which references Ninipia Prime,
Mm-hmm.
which is a holodeck program that Tom Paris has of dancing women.
Oh,
So I don't know if that's just a roundabout reference, but
like a loss in translation or subtitling. It could have been Nanipia, and I hope it was.
It had to be.
Yeah. So then Ransom basically just stabs her in the foot. He's like, I'm taking this. And she's like, why would you do that? And they just kind of like have a moment here, which is very interesting to me that they went this direction with the episode. And with these characters, because we didn't really know a whole lot about Ransom, but it's cool to kind of see like the two sides of command, like butt heads. And he definitely breaks protocol by stabbing her.
which is a court-martial offense.
Yeah, he attacked another officer. So especially as a command officer, like a commander, doing that to an ensign is not okay. Like, you're supposed to be on the same team, and he keeps saying it's our team, not my team, but he's acting like it's his team. Like, he's not allowing his team to help out. So
I think it really just demonstrates here their disparate approaches to being an officer in command. And I think we also sort of mentioned this in the past, and this conversation gives really good stuff, is that Jack, you know, he's having a lot of fun with Starfleet, but he also has this, he knows when to follow the protocol more than his own stuff. And that's what got him rewarded into command. Whereas Mariner may have started out like that and then started shucking protocol to do the right thing. And it's not because she's a bad officer. It's just because you can't really rely on someone who can't follow the protocols all the time. If you want the pips, you really have to be trusted to be able to be relied upon when lives are on the line. And I don't care if you're the best officer in the fleet. If I can't trust you, I'm not going to be able to promote you, because that means I'm basically telling the rest of the crew they can trust you when they really can't.
Yeah, she's unpredictable, and Ransom is not.
Right. Ransom knows when to do what it is. And they do that exchange you point out, my team versus our team. That, I think that's important.
Yes, I completely agree. And this is obviously like they start to think each other are hot in this episode. And this is like, this right here is bonding via shared trauma of, you know, that's basically what this is like they have this they spend this time together and they are forced to talk about these things. So yep, there she is. There's her stab wound. Thanks, dude. He's just looking at her like, I'm sorry I had to do this.
I just think he looks really cool under pressure here. Like, he's not like upset that she's gonna die. He's just like, I did what I had to do so that I put myself on the line. then he goes like full Kirk.
Yes. Rips his shirt off and then Kool-Aid Man's his way through the door into
like, how did he stay in the prison if he just could kick his way out of it?
Because he's following the rules of these. It's basically Prime Directive. He's following the not really Prime Directive.
I guess that's true.
But he's following the rules of this situation. Anyway.
And
we get to meet Vendor and he's like, I don't even need my sword.
Right.
This is such a big homage to the Kirk fights. I mean, every movie he's doing. Yes. And that was what I enjoyed so much about this episode was the homage of the whole buffer time thing, you know, overestimating how long it would take to do something, and the fighting, the old school Starfleet fighting that you would see from the original series, and it carried over into TNG and DS9. It's like the double fist punch is the staple, the bread and butter of Starfleet fighting. Did he oil up right before the fight?
I don't know. I think it's like supposed to be him sweating, and Mariner's like, wow, he's so ethical. It's so hot. It's just like, she's like, get it together.
Yeah, no, he's definitely shining in this moment. Yeah, for sure. And so we go back up to the Cerritos, and there's graffiti all over the top. Boimler is consoling the captain and helping her figure out this situation, which I think really just solidifies in my head that he is where he's supposed to be. He's just learning his way and finding his way through all of this. And Shax is like, if you're going to inspire some sort of resolution, then inspire it now. It's so meta, in my opinion. At the end of the day, though, the captain is like, the message that the captain gives is you should break any rule and protocol in order to get the job done. And that inspires her crew once again to kind of like break the shell of formality, break the shell of schedule, and get the job done. So she makes a speech and they take the ship back over again. And the crystal guys, like Tahana, she jumps at that guy. It's great. Yep. And this is just the resolution of that speech happening and the crew getting their resolve back to do whatever it takes. This one guy, he like singles out two of them.
Yeah, look at that. Jeez.
Yeah,
that was good.
Great. So Vinlor is like, he starts talking and he's like, you can talk? He's like, yeah, I just act dumb. So I just act big and dumb. I love to read.
I love to read. And he's still
and so Ransom's like, fine. And then the guy's like, fine, you won. You're all free to go.
Yep.
Which is great. It was all just like kind of a game to them. It wasn't actual, like, it wasn't their historical, like,
right.
Like, it wasn't any part of their culture. It's just like them trying to figure out how to punish visitors for arbitrary reasons. Since now they're in the Federation, they can do stuff like that. I don't know. So the away party gets freed. Awesome. Then Ransom comes down this like hallway and Mariner's like, what are your priorities, buddy? And he just like scoops her up and bridal carries her.
Yep. Just takes off. And then they're like, let's make adjudication cars or something like that. Crystal
He's like,
cars.
we have to stop using trial by combat or we'll never get to use the geode. He's like, how about a regular trial with the judge? So yeah, there's look, it's the engineer, chief engineer. That's great. They take back the ship completely. Then this is when Tana hisses at him.
Did you catch the? I think that was another classic Kirk move. Was the jump and the double leg kick. Yeah.
Look how tired that Trill looks. Oh my god, she's so tired.
Yeah.
Boimler's like, he's kind of acting first officer here, honestly.
Seems like it.
Beautiful ship, beautiful. beautiful shot. So yeah, then Shax goes back down to after they get the graffiti off, and they're like, sorry, it was very uncrystal-like of us to treat you this way.
I like how phasers can be used to polish off graffiti.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, quick job. They made quick work of it. Yeah, we get to see Shax here, who's kind of a badass. We love him. Hop back over to the ship, and they're clinking margaritas again. We love it. And we go to sickbay where Mariner and Tana have a fun exchange. And she's like, I want to keep my scar. And she's like, well, congrats. You look like a bleep scratching post, which people are upset about cussing in Star Trek. There you have it. I don't know. It's bleeped out. So I don't know how you feel about that. If you feel
whatever occasion swear word is.
But yeah. You look like a fuzzball scratching post.
That's what my cat would say.
Yeah. So Ransom is acting all sad here, and he's like, I have already packed my free weights. There's a lot of them.
Well, he's afraid he's going to get court-martialed by Mariner's report, and Mariner's like, I'm not going to file a report. And he's like, oh, okay.
You know,
once again, Mariner's like shaping the place around people around her in order to be a little more protocol breaking. What are you saying? What did you say, Big J?
I was going to say Ransom spending all of his off-duty time lifting and working out and the dumbbells, that just fits him. He's such a jabroni. You know, I can just picture that guy. That's all he's doing is doing curls in his quarters and
he's
chin
supposed
ups.
To be Riker on speed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Works.
Yeah. And then they almost like kiss in this episode.
It looked like a lean in,
which was like
he was just being a jerk.
You think? I don't think so. I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
he's maybe a little bit oblivious, but it's funny that they had them like get closer, and then they just like fucked at other writers.
You're under arrest.
Yeah, and so I think like and Dag and Big J, you've heard me talk about this before, but romance and Trek for me, like I enjoy it being a long burn, which means like, you know, it needs to take its time and have like a reason to exist in the plot. It can't just exist to exist. And so I think that this might be the start of that, which is exciting. It's fun. I like to see it. And she's like, I'm going to dance in your blood.
That was hilarious.
and then he's like, whoa, hot.
That's kind of hot. Yes.
And Watney, I totally agree with you. I think that we don't need any more of those season finale romances. You know, the ones where, okay, it's either the end of the season or the end of the series. Right. We don't need a 7 in Chakotay where suddenly it's slapped on. And you know, here's the thing. When I did the rewatch of Voyager a couple years ago, there was a little bit of setup on that. So, but I remember my first impression of it, the first time the series aired, or the series finale, it did feel tacked on. Well, I hadn't watched every episode, but then when I did, I think there was 1 or 2 episodes that was a little bit of setup, but not much. And back in those days, 2 episodes of setting up any relationship was a lot. Usually it was this is the last of the series. Let's just go ahead and have everyone hook up. And it did feel tacked on.
Yes.
So if they're going to do that here, I appreciate that if we are going to have some kind of Ransom / Mariner thing, that they're building up to it, and it's not going to be suddenly out of nowhere on the season finale of Lower Decks that suddenly they're together.
Yeah, and I was like so glad that they didn't end up like kissing, because that would have been really weird. You know,
it's weird,
and that the writers knew that. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it is weird. Like, it's a weird combination, but I think like the trial by fire, like situation that they were in kind of led to them getting to know each other more. And it's really awkward because like he's the XO and that's like her mom is the captain.
Right.
She may even like use that to get at her mom. Like, I don't know.
Oof.
We'll see. Yeah, I know. I could see her doing that, but like maybe he'll be in on it. I don't know.
we end up with Boimler in the captain's office, and she's commending him for the advice that he gave her on the bridge when everything was moving to heck. And it's not so much in a way that he really appreciates, because they make this new rule.
Look at his face.
That's all about breaking rules and taking time. And he's like, can't we add a little section about how following protocol to the letter blindly is supposed to be good? And he's like pleading with her, and she's like, oh, there's a plaque. It's already there.
Yep. There's no names on this that we can see. I know, Dag, when you make plaques for various like projects, you like to hide a bunch of cool names in there.
Mm-hmm.
But here's your plaque.
Yep,
Boimler effect.
Here it is, hanging up in your
and
quarters.
Everyone's like, no, we'll forget it. Everyone will forget it soon. And then there's like this scene, which is very reminiscent of, once again, beautiful shot of the ship. You get that delta on the side. Look how cool that is. But everyone on board is like, no, you're fine. All the lower decks people are consoling Boimler. No one will remember this. And then they jump to the far future, which is a very, I will say, and Big J, we've already talked about this. Mm-hmm. The scene here is very reminiscent of the beginning of Serenity.
Yes.
With the Firefly movie.
The kids in the class.
With the kids in the classroom, all sitting at a desk. They look very similar to the desks in Serenity. I went back and rewatched the scene. It's just like impeccable. It's surrounded by greenery. They're outside.
Yeah.
So we get to see Boimler holding his plaque, and I forgot what she said about the eagle.
Oh, so she talks about Boimler being the laziest, most, lackadaisical officer in Starfleet. And the eagle is a reference to the Great Bird of the Galaxy, which is what one of Gene Roddenberry's nicknames.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's what the eagle is a reminiscent of there. But then she goes and she's like, so let's talk about the greatest officer in Starfleet. And it's Miles O'Brien.
I lost it.
Period.
So good.
Yeah, he deserves that for all the dumb shit that he went through.
And if you're listening and you're like, why does it have to be Miles? Think about it this way. Miles is the original lower decker.
Yes.
He shows up in the very first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation as a one-pip red shirt. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to be Miles freaking O'Brien, academy instructor, war veteran, chief of ops. He has one of the best, if arguably the best career arcs in Star Trek.
I totally agree. He rolls his sleeves up because he gets the job done, just like Mariner.
I mean, right. Really think about it. His arc, you take the TNG, the premiere encounter at Farpoint, and you've got O'Brien. Even though you don't see him for a while after the fact, you've got this character that was from the beginning of TNG to the end of DS9. Mm-hmm. About the only person that would come close to that is Worf. We got 11 seasons worth of Worf. And Worf, of course, was there at the start of TNG. But I think O'Brien, really, when you think about it, Dag is right. Huge career arc with Chief O'Brien.
And I love pointing this out, but in the foreground, in the center here, there's a little Boimler with the maroon hair.
Oh, yeah.
So it might just show like in the future, we're still going to be having people who are going through this cool stuff. Also, school's outdoor because of coronavirus.
Oh, nice. God. Hopefully it's all fucking over by then. Hopefully it's over by midsummer next summer. So. So we made it through our episode 3 review. I know this was a shorter one for those of you listening. I know we usually put out a little bit longer episodes, but this one we didn't have a whole lot to discuss because we just loved it. So once again, thank you for listening. You can find us on Patreon at BeyondTrek. We are on Instagram now at BeyondTrek Podcast. Follow us there. I run that page. Doug runs our Twitter at BeyondTrek Pod. So give a shout out to him there. And we also have a Facebook, BeyondTrek Productions. So thank you so much for listening. Any final words, co-hosts?
Yeah. So I think one we would love to hear your input on. Do you like longer podcasts, shorter ones? I wonder if anyone's disappointed that, this is not an hour and a half long thing, because we love hearing Dag and Watney and Big J's deep dive into the lore, which that was a comment that I read on one of our social media pages, was that the quote was, I thought I was a Star Trek fan, but with these guys do so many deep dives into the lore and the knowledge. It's like, wow, and it's right. You guys surprise me all the time. Now, here's
a Star Trek fan.
Yes,
I will say.
Yes.
No matter what you know about trivia and the lore, you are a fan.
Yep.
Nobody can take your fandom away.
Exactly. Here's the one closing thing that I have. So, and we talked about this last night when we were hanging out on Discord. The name of the episode, Temporal Edict, that totally threw me off, because I think last week, Dag, you were talking about that was going to be a time travel episode.
I thought so, and I was wrong.
I think you made a reference on it wasn't about time travel, but time management.
Yep.
And that completely broke that trope of,
time travel episodes always having something in the name.
Yes.
In the title of the episode. And no, very well done.
That was a good observation you made on that.
Thanks.
Edicts come from the captain, period.
Those admiral uniforms. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Oh,
yep.
Yeah. I cannot wait to see next week. Episode 4. So once again, thank you so much for listening to us. We really love that you stuck around, and check us out online. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Yep, we'll see you. See you till next
Cheers.
time. Live long and prosper.
We are BeyondTrek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.